Okay, we copy that. Bring that over here. Ladies and gentlemen, you are tuned into the famous Dwayne's podcast. I'm your host, Dwayne, and with me are my two guests slash co-hosts slash regulars slash all of that stuff. Hope and Ajaya, say what up to the people.
Hey.
Peace, peace. What's good?
So we are talking about the industry of fear. We were looking to do it on Halloween, like around that time, because it would have been, timely, but whatever. They push out fear 24/7, 365. So you definitely.
It's cool. Yeah, we just celebrated Dia de los Muertos too. I'm good.
Yeah, that Mexican joint. That's not politically correct.
Is it not a Mexican holiday though?
Yeah, it is.
So
Yeah, it is.
wouldn't that be an okay statement?
Man, I don't know anymore. People are scared to say what they really feel. That's another thing. So I did a little bit of research. By a little bit, I mean a very little bit. Most of it's just life experience and stuff like that, and know how the game go. But I would say that fear is quite the motivator to get people to do what you want. It starts from, it can start from being physically reprimanded by your parents to, bullies to all kinds of other things. So, it's wild out here in these streets and what people will do just to not deal with fear. So let me see who I'm gonna start with. We'll start in alphabetical order. So Ajay, what is your thoughts on the industry of fear?
Man, listen. It's been a fear attack since you were born. As a birth worker, they instill fear because they take the baby away from the mom. That naturally makes the baby fearful. That makes them just tend towards fear, coming out in a scary situation, something that's completely unnatural. They program us for fear from the jump. Then your parents come and add fear. Then if you're religious, you got the fear of God. It's just fear on top of fear. Like if most parents want their child to fear them, they will tell you that, and they see absolutely nothing wrong with it. To each his own. But that just lets you know that we know fear has been a motivator. We tell stories of Black trauma is telling stories about how fear motivated you when you were young because you knew your mama or daddy was about to, and you was doing all this wild shit because you were scared and were trying to get out of a physical punishment. So that goes to school, you got fear. You know what I mean? Go to work. If you don't show up on time, if you don't kiss the boss ass just right, if you step on some toes, fear of losing your job, everything is fear. Like, I mean, it's a literal programming that they instilled in people. Like that is culture. That is US culture, fear programming. They just fear all the time. So it was nothing to take that fear and transfer it to a sickness, a disease, you know what, if you will. Everybody out here getting vaccinated up. And for what? Out of fear.
Yep. I mean, yeah, the weird thing is like fear is, I would say, to a degree, a natural emotion, maybe. I guess is that considered emotion or feeling, whatever. But I think that there's the way the society's set up, it's set up to like just, I mean, it hyper intensifies everything. We're hyper afraid, we're hypersexualized, we're hyper everything. So it's just like whatever we do, we just gotta like do it to the limit. So it's just how America rolls. So yeah, like I mean, I don't think any other country really got like this many scary movies. They all trash for real. I don't know. Like I stopped being scared of movies probably like 16, and stuff started being funny to me. which may lead to which may be hints at like some other deeper, darker issues, but that's between me and my therapist. But right now, this whole industry of fear is just trying to get people scared of stuff, and even stuff with the predictive programming and a lot of like older movies and like even newer movies. Like there's this thing on Netflix called Inside Job, and they literally say all the conspiracy theories and stuff like that, and they make a joke out of it. It's that bold, and the kind of time thing on. Hope, I know that you are one to not be scared of shit, but what has your experience been with the whole concept of fear and how they're trying to push that into these streets out here?
Well, I did want to comment on what you said about fear being a natural emotion. It is. And what's unnatural, I guess, inorganic, whatever word you want to use, is people's responses to fear. So you're going to be afraid of certain things. That's fine. That's natural. But to me, the challenge that comes when you are fearful is seeing if you have the courage to face whatever it is that you're afraid of, whether it's keeping your opinion on something or standing your ground on something. So it's that people can't take their own fear and turn it into something else. They're letting somebody else turn it into something for them. And fear is used worldwide, like especially if you go back to the wars when other, countries were throwing smear campaigns about over here we're throwing smear campaigns about other countries. If you're familiar with anything about what goes around in North Korea, I mean, other countries definitely use fear on their own people. So it is a United States thing, but it's also a worldwide thing. And a lot of media isn't even American ran. That's another topic. But when you're using fear like that so much 24/7 and people don't know how to respond to said fear or can't be courageous enough to stand up because they're letting their fear consume them, that's when it becomes unnatural, I suppose. Because the whole point is to grow and level up. And if you can't do something as simple as stand your ground on an opinion on something you have, which is taught out of you, in certain situations, then you're going to stay in the same place, and unfortunately, some people don't have parents at home that teach them, hey, things aren't always going to be, everyone's not always going to agree with you. Everyone's not going to be on your side, but you stand up for whatever it is that you stand your ground for, whether around friend groups. I know we all had that situation when we were younger, when we first got in trouble in school, and we would tell our parents, oh, so-and-so made me do it, to make it seem like we didn't do it. Well, no, whatever part you played in it, I mean, that's the part that you played, and it might have been out of fear, but you made a decision. And when the media, whoever is throwing fear in our face, we have a decision to make. And fortunately, a lot of people decide to cave instead of stand firm for what they say that they believe in.
True. That shirt, what did that say?
The shirt said, "This is bullshit." So, like, this is bullshit.
That is the perfect shirt for the show. But yeah, I definitely agree. And outside of the good old US of A, their fear tactics are a little bit more real. There's a lot more dire consequences. And so honestly, like I'm pretty sure people in other nations look at us like, what are you niggas afraid of? Like you can disagree with people and it's all good. Like you can say something bad about the leader in power and not get beheaded or, stoned or skinned alive or whatever they do over there. All of the above, I guess. Yeah. So, it's just kind of wild how spoiled, I guess we are. I guess that's the right word I want to use. And it's just we don't have we have a very limited frame of reference on, what fear really is or what consequences really are. And I feel like, here it's a lot more covert as far as like the fear tactics that they're trying to push. But there's people that wake up every day, not knowing whether this is going to be, their last day waking up, where their meal's coming from, if they can, shower, if they got cool running water, anything like that. And we over here just like mad about what someone said on the internet. Like it's just kind of goofy if you really think about it. But here's where we are.
I think for me, it's the facade that so many people are trying to pretend like fear is not their main motivation.
Mm.
I think that's really where a lot of the debate stems from. Most of the people who are doing it out of fear aren't admitting that that's why, or even any act really, but no one's admitting like that they're doing it out of fear. You know what I mean? They make up these reasons in their mind that make sense. You know what I mean? That they can try to pass it off as, well, it's just smart because, or I've got every other, you know what I mean? Like just any reason you make up to deflect that it's fear, whether you're afraid of just death. You're afraid of death. So you're doing whatever it is because you are afraid of death. We don't even have to talk about no consequences, nobody else. Most people are afraid of death. They're afraid to death and they're afraid of death. Like they're just like all at the same time. And if no one's going to admit that it's fear that's motivating them, then the idea of even talking about fear will go right over most of their heads. It gives them a reason to ignore it. You know what I mean? At this point, the veil is gone. The only ones that exist are the ones you choose to be ignorant to, the ones that you pull back down. Like, oh, nope, yep, don't want to see that. Like, everything is there for you to see and figure out and think for yourself. But most people can't think for themselves. Like, they can't formulate their own opinion. They can only go off of something that they've told. Okay, they gave me this angle, and I'm gonna pick one of these two. Like, usually there's no variation in people's things. It's just like, and then all they know is any other third option makes them fearful. Like,
so I'm wondering, do you think this is just people don't have the mental capacity? They're lazy? Like, what do you think it is?
I mean, most people's lives is stressful on a day-to-day before all this shit popped off. Like,
Mm-hmm.
And for some people, I know it's turned into, I don't want to have another thing to deal with. Like, I know some people that's just like, I don't know, they just making it hard. Fuck it. Like, I got fucking bills to pay, got this over here. You know what I mean? Like, they're just like, I don't look, fuck it. Like, unfortunately, that is the story of a lot of people who have gotten it just like it was the path of least resistance, and they got too much shit going on to really have the mental capacity to put towards that too. Like, so I don't want to say they don't have the mental capacity innately. Like, I don't want to seem like you're saying that, but they put so much mental shit to everything else, and they're so stressed out that they don't have the mental capacity to think in this spot. So it's easy just to defer. Like, okay, that's what they said. You know what I mean? Like, okay, let's just roll with it. And I think for people not to understand that you need to make space and actually think about and look at what's going on right now, because if you're not looking at how shit is going to move in the next 5 years and you continue just to stay on the hamster wheel without, like, the shit's gonna hit and it's gonna be like a fucking blind side to you. You know what I mean? Like, so like people need to clear out the mental space right now to sit and think, and don't be afraid, speaking of fear, of having these hard conversations. We're talking about lives. You know what I mean? Like, we're talking about genocide. We are talking about what does the future look like without an agreed governing body. Like, have these conversations. You can't just keep going day to day. You can't keep doing that and deferring to whatever the said power is that's telling you, that's giving this opinion or pushing you down this way, because you should know, if you have actually looked at history, that any way they are pushing you is for their control and for their benefit. So if you're not going to stop and think and make the mental space, then you know where you're going and you've agreed with that. You shouldn't even be in the conversation no more. You don't got shit to say. You picked a side. Go where they go. You know what I mean? Like, or make the mental space and think about this shit, y'all. Like, it's that simple.
So basically, people's iPhones are out of storage and they need to delete some things in order to take in new information.
Yes.
Yeah, understood. And I definitely think that. I think people are like some people are just more tired than like scared. It's just like, oh, this now? I gotta do this now. I'm already doing X, Y, and Z. Now I gotta do this too. So, that is definitely a good point about that because I mean, I wasn't really scared enough of for real, but just being around scared people or fearful people or people that are like kind of older is just like, you know, I'm good, you'll be good too, but I'm seeing it like literally like tear families apart.
It's crazy. That is absolutely crazy. I had the strangest experience at a funeral, like where, supposedly the person passed of said thing.
Mhm.
But and sister had just came out of the hospital with it on oxygen. Like it was a thing. I think 4 people in that family have possibly passed from it. But I don't go inside of funerals. That's not my way that I deal with death. So it's a lot for me to go in there with the emotions and all that stuff and how they choose it is too much for me. So I was outside, like outside the funeral home in the parking lot. Don't mind me. And when the sister came out, she's like hyperventilating, like, you know what I mean? And so my first thing is to run to her, wrap my arms around her, and slow down. Like you're on oxygen. I'm gonna need you to breathe. Like, hey, cry. I understand it hurts, but you're gonna have to breathe through it because, like, we about to have an emergency right here. So I'm like, so she's calming down, and a lady clearly medical, mask on, and she's calming down. She's like, the lady's like, hey, can you back up to the height? And she was like, I mean, it is cold, it is the C word.
COVID-19. COVID-19.
Yeah. And so I was like, she's like, I need to see her chest. Let me see her chest. And so she's like looking at her chest. And she's like, okay, I'm gonna need, all right. Like, I don't know who she's talking to or what she said. She's just staring at her chest. And I'm like, she's like, okay, yeah, where's your mask? And I was like, if you do not I don't give a fuck about a mask right now. Like, people are dealing with death and they are getting beaten the ass. I mean, children coming out crying, like little babies. My nephew, I'm like, girl, I'm like, and you worried about a fucking mask? Like, this is crazy. Like, this is just absolutely crazy. Everybody in the fucking funeral home in a mask, suffocating their fucking selves. Like, I'm just sitting there, like, what the hell is going on? Like, this just is like kids are afraid to leave the house without their mask. Like, what? It's like an alternate reality. Like, it's crazy. Like, it is crazy, and it is ripping families apart. Like, I can't say I think everybody who got the vaccine is gonna die in 5 years. I'm not allowed to say that because everybody gonna be fucking offended. I'm like, yes, I have made peace with all of y'all. I had to because that's how I feel about it. But I can't express that truly. You know what I mean? Like, I can't truly express that to most people. You know what I mean? Like, so I stay out of the conversations. They try to keep the conversations away from me because they know how I feel about it. You know what I mean? Like, but
Yeah, and I think that's another thing, like, with people just not just being afraid to have these conversations, but also like people be tired. I'm tired of talking about,
yep.
the jabs and the jab nots. Like I did like 3 episodes on that stuff, and one of them got taken down on the platform
Man,
we're on right now. But no shade, no
it's crazy.
whatever. But it was they're really trying to push this thing. They're really trying to push this thing.
Yeah,
And,
we're
I mean,
seeing it.
yeah. And the thing is,
Like, we're seeing how we think, how they try to scare us and how they censor other countries like China or whatever. That's what's happening right here, right now. If y'all if you haven't made that connection, I don't like. I don't know what we're talking about. Like, you out the conversation, go that way. You know where you going. You pick your side. Like, that's where I'm at with it. Like,
yeah. I mean, for all we know, the next 5 years, this might be the states of general sales. Anyway, let's move forward. Hope. Please say something not offensive.
You're fine. What's I going to address? You had said something earlier where you were saying if people like are lazy or don't have the mental capacity. Part of me feels like yes, I get that people are tired. Um, I really do, but to me, it's one of those things where either you always were kind of like, thinking for yourself or you weren't. And I just reflect on like grade school. People like to talk junk about elementary school all the time and the system of this and that. All right, cool, that's fine. The schooling system, did whatever. But it was also, especially primary school, one of the key ways in which we develop when we started learning, when we started learning how to read, when we started applying ourselves for the first time. And you would literally see certain groups of people click up on purpose. You would see people who would go out of their way to not do work. You would see people who would literally make excuses to do the easy stuff. Then when it came to do the more difficult stuff later on down the road, they really couldn't do it because they didn't develop their skills early on to begin with. So same thing goes with this, and the same thing goes with really anything in life. If you didn't ever develop the mental capacity for a certain thing or a certain skill or a certain attribute, why do you think that you're going to be able to apply it later just because you want to? Things in life take work, and I know people don't like to hear that. Things in life are not always going to be easy. And honestly, sometimes when I hear some of the things that people complain about or say is just like a big revelation, I feel like isn't that big of a deal because I feel like things were a lot harder for our parents and grandparents generation. The only real difference for me is there's a lot more mental work that has to be done. Like there's a lot more thinking that we have to do because back then, I mean, our parents and grandparents really didn't have time to do these things, but we slick have no excuse because we have uh, technology. Like we have advanced, quick moving technology at the palm of our hands. It's very compact, it's very small, it's everywhere. And you can demonize technology, for whatever. That's a different topic. But I'm real big on using things not necessarily for the intended purpose because we don't know what someone's intended purpose is for something. And some things have existed before people remanufacture them. So, but you can use your resources to help you. There are plenty of things out there where you can learn to read critically. There are plenty of sources out there where you can get information. Something as simple as statistics. I don't really argue too many people with anymore because they don't understand or have they studied statistics. They don't understand that if you see someone who paid a certain study, there's a reason why they were paid to do that. They don't understand that depending on who sourced or outsized certain work, there's a reason why they use this sample size. So if you're not even going to go back deeper to look at statistics and where they come from and why they're formed and how they're used, I'm not going to argue or go back and forth with someone that doesn't understand. Because like everyone has said, you chose your side, you wait. And it doesn't just apply to this, it applies to anything because a real conversation can't be had. And a lot of people are not trying to have real conversations, to be honest. They're angry, they're tired, they're frustrated, they're fed up, all of that understandable. But at some point you have to come with yourself and be like, I'm tired of being tired. Like, honestly, I'm tired of being duped and tired of this. And a lot of people really aren't tired of that kind of stuff. They really enjoy the lies. A lot of people really enjoy being told, fake things. And that if that's what they want to live on, if that's what they want to choose, that's totally up to them. But I mean, that's their choice. That's their choice. So I do think that a lot of people um, lack it because another thing I see a lot is all these people, running back to try to reclaim their inner child, reclaim their inner child, reclaim their inner child, which is fine in its own regard. But I sit there and think, well, what did you do when you were a child? Because the way that they use certain concepts is like a genie in a bottle. Like, oh, let me go back and use this because I squandered it back then. I understand some people had tough childhoods. I did too with certain things, but at the same time, I still had my childlike mannerisms. I still was creative. I would do things that I wanted to do. Of course, not everything is your children. And I mean, even in life, you're not going to get every single thing that you want. And you realize that everything that you want isn't necessarily what you need as well. That comes with growth. But everyone's like trying to go back to this thing that they think was so magical because they don't want to deal with right now and deal with the present. Because with certain skills and certain information that's being spread, you can take the time to look it up. You can, no matter what you're doing, like you have to make the time. And it's one of those, I mean, it's one of those harsh, ugly realities that people don't like to hear. You got to make the time. And if you didn't develop certain skills, I mean, you playing catch up now. It just is what it is. And if you want to actually learn, you got to take the time to do that. Because another thing I hate seeing people do is just throw out certain articles because it does fuel their point, but they're also not reading it from both sides. Because someone who truly understands, to me, in my experience, is going to look at all sides of something and not just, push one way or another. But again, those critical thinking skills are lacking because people didn't develop them. And like I said, unfortunately, there's just certain things that you can't go back and redevelop if they weren't there. I mean, you just kind of have to start where you are. And a lot of people don't want to. I mean, it's like people's excuses for staying in the house all day and getting fat. They don't want to do better.
And I feel like a lot of people are, as you get older, you just get beat by the system so much into form that they've been whooped into form, and they don't even remember what they looked like when they were their own person. You know what I mean? Like they don't remember what it was like to have their own thought or opinion and not have to worry about what somebody else thought about it. And whether that started for them when they were 5, 6, you know what I mean? Or whether it started for them more in adulthood, you know what I mean? Like, so, but I think just working in education, you see when middle school is when you really start to see people start to, at least when I was in middle school, I don't know, and from what I see, people start to people start clicking up based on ideas, and they might just be following the crowd to be clicked up with this crowd. You know what I mean? Like, and I think people have to get back to the idea of like, what was it when you just thought for yourself? Like, what happens when they say that in this, what do you think? Like, take off the end of it where they explain it to you. Like, just I'll give you the story in a simple way. Like, if somebody walked up on the street and told you there's something out here making people sick, you need to stay in your house, here where it is, and eventually, hey, I'm gonna come sell you this. When you feel like a sucker, you don't get the fuck out of my face with this bullshit. Like, you're like, what? Like, so why do you believe it just because it's organized and there's just billions behind it? That's what the advertising industry is. There's billions behind this scam. So just like the person that just walked up to you on the street, if somebody walked up to you with the same story, how would you see it? Like, you don't got to study nothing. You don't got to read nothing. Just take the facts for what it is. Somebody just randomly told you this shit. What would you think?
Yeah, I mean, oh, sorry. I was just,
exactly, some goofy shit. Like,
yeah, it is goofy, and that's what I mean when I say those skills have to be developed from when you were younger. Because I do work with children actively. Still, I have children I work with in the elementary school, middle age, and like the young pre-primary school age. And the click shit doesn't start in middle school. It starts as soon as you start school. It really starts in daycare. If you go around daycare, you got babies over there clicking up over the blocks, and they're agreeing to keeping away from Sally Mae because of whatever. So it starts instantly, and there are certain people who are just drawn to certain clicks and ideas, and that could be a familial thing. Like maybe there's something in their family or their bloodline they got to get over, whatever, because I don't know everyone's individual story. So to be deceived by something is, silly sounding as someone coming up to you and trying to sell you something that doesn't make any sense, that you see that in your everyday life doesn't really affect you. If you couldn't think for yourself when it came to holding the blocks away from Sally Mae, then you're definitely going to get duped by this type of stuff. And while you may not have to go and read a bunch of stuff and study, skills have to be developed no matter what. And some of those skills are developed through experiences, by being involved in certain situations, by reading certain things, by, even if you don't like books, by just being where certain conversations are held. Excuse me. Because it starts really early. And then to go back to the fear thing too, kids get afraid of not being accepted by their friends very, very early, like 5 years old or younger than that sometimes. So that's where it comes down to, because the making the time thing goes to parents as well. My mom worked all the time. She was very busy. But one thing she always made sure she had time to do was sit down and teach me certain lessons. She was very adamant about not following the crowd. She was very adamant about reading with me at home. Those are things that she did and nourished me. Everyone doesn't have that opportunity. I understand everyone's circumstance is different, but at some point, those parents had to sit down and be like, hey, I need to prioritize something. 'Cause that's what my mom had to do. It's just her raising, knowing what she makes now. I had no idea how she made things work when I was younger at all. No idea how she made things work because I couldn't do that with the amount that she was getting. So it's people picking what they want to prioritize and people picking what skills they want to develop. Critical thinking is a skill. It's one of the most undervalued skills, but you start developing that in primary years. You start developing that in formative years. It doesn't come later and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow, this sounds stupid. I shouldn't follow it. You had to know that sounded stupid back when you was holding those blocks in preschool.
Big fact. And I'm really thinking about this whole concept of people trying to reclaim their childhood in this whole nostalgia industry, which is so annoying. And I remember somebody actually tweeted that nostalgia is low key, like almost like a mental illness, like as a form of escapism. Just trying to go back to things that you were certain about. And
Good. That's what they doing right now to all of the 80s and 90s people. They bringing everybody back. Maya's back out here. Ashanti's back on tour. Like they're bringing everybody back as like a part of the trance to keep you. You know what I mean? Like to try to keep you entertained. Like I'm like, dang, they brought everybody back from the early 2000s and 90s. Like
yeah, and I think also a funny thing is another correlation I'm thinking about is people trying to go back to their childhood because at some point children were fearless. I think a lot of times fear was taught to children. And people are so fearful now. They're trying to go back to a time when they didn't have to worry about things, when life was simple. And I think that's a big part of nostalgia. That's kind of like a almost like a Trojan horse, if you will, to kind of distract people.
And it's a good one. Like, yeah, you gotta strip all that conditioning off. Like, yeah, strip all the conditioning off, all the stuff that you swear that you're claiming that was you. And like that was never you. You know what I mean? Like, but now you feel like you gotta defend this or you defend that, or you with this group and you with that group, and that's all conditioning. Like politics, any type of political alliance that you have, chances are you didn't give a fuck about that shit in high school. That's just programming that you got into when you were younger. It's programming. It really doesn't matter. It doesn't speak to if a person is a good person or a bad person. Absolutely nothing. Like, it doesn't matter. Like all these different programmings and all these different value systems that you've put on that you really don't care about. That's not who you are. That's conditioning. You don't really like none of that makes a difference in your day-to-day life. But it's a like a hat you put on. Oh, we're in this circle. Oh, let me get this hat. Oh, we're in this circle. Oh, we put this opinion up. You know what I mean? Like, and none of this stuff is really anything that you like care about. If you didn't watch the news, you would never talk about that shit. It wouldn't just be stuff that you brought up. And like, I don't think people are understanding how much it's a conditioning and a programming. And it started in school. And that's why you can't critically think because they took it out of most public schools. Like they stopped literally when I was in 5th grade, the last critical thinking question, my 5th grade year, they stopped making us do it. It wasn't required. But all the way up into that, like it was like 6 questions, and the last one was always a critical thinking question where you had to write something out. Everybody hated that shit. And they stopped making us do it in 5th grade. Like they literally took critical thinking. It's not a must. It's not a thing. It's a get it in if you can. And if you ain't getting it at home like Hope did, then oh, guess what? Looks like your critical thinking skills are not going to work unless you just one of these get it out the mud, learned it the hard knock way. Like you let life teach you and you actually learn. Like we got people who actually learn and you got knuckleheads. Like, but at some point the common sense, you can get back to common sense. Like you just got to use it. Like you can get back to that. don't make it difficult. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a lot of unlearning and relearning and stuff like that. Because I mean, life really is high key simple. We just made everything so complicated. Like it makes no sense. Like
You
you
can see it
live,
with the children. That's why people hate children, because life is not complicated for them. Like, y'all, people are always trying to steal children's joy secretly, like make something harder than it needs to be, or like, oh, like get some sick kind of joy out of watching them learn a lesson or watching them fail. Like, that's a real thing. So they can be like, I told you, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, that's a real thing, but just, life is simple for children. We complicate life for them. Like, but anything, like, life is simple for children. And people want to go back to a time where it is that simple, but it's like it is that simple. You're just choosing to complicate it. So like you're trying to go back and capture something that is right there. You're the person complicating it. So let it go. Like shit.
yeah, it's just crazy. Like how people basically like created this concept of fear, bottled it, and just like sold it. Like it's crazy. Like even you know, before the COVID-19, there was the Magic Johnson juice, you know what I'm saying? And they used that to sell Jimmy hats back in the day. And they was selling that for like a good 30 years. And then somebody on Twitter was like, nah, we ain't doing that no more. And then, niggas stopped doing it. But, I don't think the studies on that and that stuff, depends. And, there's a whole conspiracy about that I'd rather not get into. But, I'm not sure if the number's any higher than it was back then. And there's a lot of documentaries that can kind of debunk a couple of these things. And the fact that this all based upon like the same doctor is something else that's seems to not be addressed by most people.
And then if you look at history, these niggas be lying all the time. All the time. Like why? Like, come on. When have they ever given something to the people that was good for them for free? When? When has it not been for some kind of control move to continue to strip away more rights? People don't even seem to understand is like they are regulating more and more life now than they have ever regulated in history. Like you ain't supposed to drive in your car. You can't get no money on the side. You can't do shit without that. You can't collect rainwater. Like you want to have solar panels. Don't let you live in a house, a home. What is them things called? Homeowners association. Nigga, that ain't even your house really. Like you can't do shit if they don't like so much of life is regulated, but people still think that's freedom. Like, and people don't even know what freedom is anymore. Okay. People don't even know what freedom is anymore, but they'll still talk about they value freedom. You know what I mean? Like, when the last time, what is freedom? Because you clearly think that you should be able to make me wear a mask because you scared, but you say you for freedom. What? That ain't how this works. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I kind of went off on a tangent.
I mean, points were made. This whole concept of freedom and how it never really was there. And then it's almost like freedom is like in America, it's like friends with benefits. Like it's not official. You kind of see it a little bit, you know what I'm saying? But you don't really get the full benefits of actually having freedom. It's just there every once in a while. It's just like, yeah, he'll leave his wife at some point, maybe.
Yeah, or they put you on you get the picture on Instagram like you on their page, but like they don't be picking up the phone and shit. Like we have the facade of freedom. We have the expression of freedom with none of the true tenets. It's on no foundation though. So it's like if you completely control a culture and make it to the point that people don't even understand that there's a different way of thinking, but then you give them all the leeway to express anything and everything they want to express, you've already put them in this. Most people are only going to express this much of the thing when it's this big, but we've educated them to a point so this is really all they're ever going to express. We can give them free reign and we know it's going to stay in here. And for those who venture out, fact check their ass. You know what I mean? Like that's a simple, you know what I mean? Like it's a simple thing. And we can call it freedom. And it looks like freedom. People are like, oh, they get to do whatever they want over there as long as it's for their destruction. Yes, they do. You know what I mean? Like, but it's like this whole facade of freedom when people think they're making their own decisions, but you don't even understand the program that was put into you to control you to make you make that decision.
Yeah, it's on autopilot. And I think that really goes down to like the point here, like the main point is this: why are they doing this? And it's really for control. Like the whole concept of fear is like, if you can't get someone to do something like, by saying, oh, well, you recommend this or you recommend that, it's like, all right, well, we're going to instill fear. It's like, okay, so since you don't want to do this, we're going to take away the stuff that you love to do. We're going to take away sporting events. We're going to take away concerts. We're going to take away, what else? I mean, I just live however I want to live. So I'm
your job, shit.
Yeah, your job.
Your job, man. Your kid's schooling. Like somebody hit me up from California that could not get her child enrolled in school because she was not trying to get her vaccinated. And I was like, damn, that's fucked up. Like, I can't help you. If she was already in school, we keep her from getting kicked out, but she ain't even enrolled nowhere. Like,
yeah, that's wild. And then it's like, I mean, how old was this kid? Because like that's another crazy concept they're trying to push. Like they're trying to push it onto kids now.
Man, they just approved it, didn't they? I think the little girl is like 7 or 8, maybe. Like, it's crazy. It's literally like I said, there's a line being drawn. So yeah, give up your basketball. Yeah, give up. Like yeah, that's what. Yeah, is going to the movie theaters worth it? You better get a camera and make your own movies and watch your own shit. Like, come like this is what I mean. Are you really gonna let people? People are so externally motivated that without that shit, they haven't put any work on anything internal. You know what I mean? They haven't done any work on self. Everything has been so externalized that if you start taking that stuff away, people are like, what am I gonna do if I can't watch this? What if I'm gonna do if I can't go here? What if I do if I can't? You know what I mean? Like, okay, well, I mean, I guess you could send somebody to the liquor store, make drinks at home, invite other people over who chose not to do the same thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, actually start trying to figure out what that looks like. Or just get in line and choose the side that you want and stop getting in the conversation. Like, this don't concern you. You know where you at. You still want to play boo-boo the fool, thinking these people give a fuck about you.
Yeah.
Be over there.
A lot of people have, decided to sack up, if you will, and, be like, you know what, like, where I'm at right now is on that BS. I'm going to move somewhere where it's a little bit more free, if you will. Like, shoot, that's what I did. I was originally in New York and, the epicenter of all of that stuff. And I was like, y'all niggas is goofy. I'm going to go somewhere else. I'm going to take my talents elsewhere. And I did that. And a lot of people are doing it. They're going to Texas. They're going to Georgia. They're going to the South because it's just, they don't care.
Yeah, it ain't worth it.
Like I think New York just honestly, like New York legalized weed because it's like trying to save the economy because everybody is leaving. Like, is no point in being there. Like, no one wants to be there anymore. It's whack now. It hurts
Clearly,
but it's just like ugh.
Yeah, I know someone who's in New York and they've been doing a lot of protests and marches over there because they're, like you said, they're not with it. And I mean, but that to me is using the fear and facing it and turning it into courage because we do have options. I know, like I said, I just know what goes on in other countries, and I just don't really complain or too much about what's happening here because, like we have stated, and I'm not going to go into any details, people literally getting like beheaded in other countries and straight up. So just for speaking out against certain leaders. So I'm not really, too much with the woe is me programming that a lot of people, because that comes along with the fear and the it comes along with the unlearning to me, depending on how people approach it, because people have this whole throw the baby out with the bathwater mentality. And while, yes, you can go back to where you think times were easier, you also grew and you also matured. And there are lessons that you need to take along the way. So instead of trying to unlearn everything, because you think everything you learned is bad or everything that you were taught were bad, because that's just going to lead to more anger, which is going to make you make more rational decisions based in fear. Literally, like really sit and take the time to see what you did in life or what you learned in life. That was because everything, wasn't bad. And I get what you're saying about the school systems, but even that depends on the school, because where I'm at, they still keep critical thinking questions up to middle school. They constantly change the school system and the standards. That's constantly, an ongoing and oncoming thing. They might take it away in fifth grade. They might bring it back in sixth grade. They might take it away in seventh grade. They might bring it back in eighth grade and bring it back throughout all of high school. So, but I mean, I just kind of look ahead at all curriculums in general just to keep up with it. But even something like that depends on the school system. And even with this that's going on, you can go anywhere at this point. There are places that have cheaper cost of living. And of course, I know there are some people with extremely weakened circumstances. We're not talking about the outliers. We're talking about people who can do something, which is most people who can do something. You can go places where that isn't an issue. Until I get on social media or until I don't watch news, I'm not going to say when I turn on the news, or until I go certain places, and that's very, very little, I don't even know this is going on because it's not discussed. It's not something that people are, going crazy about in the streets. Rarely do you even see anyone that has a place of business that is mandating that you do it. They will say, it's recommended or it's appreciated, and no one's going to say anything to me anyway. So whatever. And if they do say something to me, I'm gonna keep it walking. I wish someone would put their hands on me. Like it's just not that big a deal to me, because most people who are operating in that fear mindset are afraid to really do anything without someone else. They may say something real quick like, oh, where's your mess? And that's about as far as it's gonna go. Unless a whole bunch of other people are coming and ganging up on you, which then will be illegal, as that is assault. I mean, nothing's really gonna come up of it. You just gotta put your your blinders on and ignore a lot of that, because people are not going to do anything past that because they're afraid to begin with, which is why they're doing what they're doing. And we know misery loves company, so of course they're going to try to pull you down with them. So I mean, there's just, like you said, there's just places that you can go that'll probably be better for you, cheaper for you, where they're just not caring. And obviously, if enough people don't care, I know people like to say, oh, because most people are doing X, Y, and Z, but really it's those small percentages of people that impact business the most, which is why those bigger cities are adjusting their policies or their mindsets, because they're like, hey, whoa, these people are bringing money in. Hold up now. We can't lose that. Now, I don't think Cali's going to change because Cali's always been on that foolishness, and that's just the kind of state it is. But with other cities who or states who are implementing certain things, I mean, they're going to get hurt because people, there aren't enough people, because the people who are getting certain things too are the same people who are scared to go out. So they're not really getting the business or the money that they thought they were. There realizing, hey, it's these people that actually give us our coins, and we need those coins or we're not gonna grow as a state. So there are options even within the lack of options. You got to sit there and pick what you want to do and decide. People are not making enough decisions is what it is. They're letting too much time go by. And then when it is time to make a decision, it's like crunch time, or they feel pressured into it. So they didn't take the time to think about it, whatever it may be. So which of course instills fear. Anytime you're running away from yourself or you're trying to get rid of something in yourself, it's going to lead you back to fear if you're not dealing with it. And then even with certain lessons that you want to learn or certain critical things, so as you want to get back, you have to sit and be like, man, I wasted some time, or you can't be afraid to do those things either. People are most afraid of being alone. And I don't mean like lonely. They're really afraid of looking in themselves and being like, "Ooh, maybe I was a little weak when I made the decision," or "Ooh, shit, maybe I should have, thought a little harder on that." And that's okay. But if you can't be introspective, then you definitely can't grow and you definitely can't gain critical thinking skills. And you definitely can't make a simple decision. If you're going to let if you can't do something without three other people agreeing, if you can't do something on your own, I mean, you kind of doomed in all aspects. But yeah,
Look, I saw somebody on TikTok say that she's trying to look at the hole in the mirror and asking her to change her ways.
kudos.
Hey man,
that's a step.
make a change. It starts with
Yeah, it starts with
hole in the
you.
mirror.
Like,
Yeah.
what are you really afraid of? Like, I've always, felt like, fear is the most the most powerful and most popular religion in the world. Like, fear rules everything. Like, if you're afraid of something, it's gonna affect how you do things.
Mhm.
Like, if you know anyone that's like afraid of spiders or something like that, like when there's a spider in the room, you can't even watch certain movies with them. Or like, how you used to have that Snapchat filter with the little spider thing.
Mhm.
Like, they will block you. Like, I know someone that's afraid of. I know a couple of people that's afraid of spiders, and one of my best friends, I sent her a picture of a winged tarantula, and she cursed me out. We hadn't talked for months. Like,
I had a
Wow.
friend that would crash the car if a bug or a bee would fly in the window or some shit. Like we driving, she's like, "Oh," I was like, "Bitch, you hope for real?" Like, I mean, I understand you scared, but you gonna just run into traffic? She was like, "I don't do bees." Like, man, you don't do life. I can't
Girl,
ride with you.
that's bad survival skills because listen, that's that fight or flight. Look, you better fight for your life.
I literally just saw this scene from this movie last night on Netflix called I think it was Hypnotic or something like that. Not the basic bitch drink back in the day. Like, this is called, it's a hypnotist or whatever. And this chick thought she saw like a spider when she was driving, and then she like panicked and like slammed on the gas and like killed her and her husband. And I'm just like, what did you?
Irrational fear.
Yes,
Irrational.
that's a phobia.
Yes.
All these other phobics and stuff like that you guys are talking about. If someone's not paralyzed in fear from your lifestyle and what you do, or just being around you, then it's not a real thing.
Oh,
It's not a real
yeah.
phobia. Just saying, you just
Just
staying
throw
on top.
that out there.
Yeah.
But
Like,
no, like people are there's a lot of phobias out here. Like, and I think the biggest one might be like people are truly afraid of themselves. And it's because they don't know themselves. So people fear what they don't know. So if you don't know what you're gonna find when you look into yourself because you've been so disconnected, you don't want to look. You know what I mean? Like, and now it's and then in this particularly to the vaccine, if you don't, you definitely don't want to look if you already took it.
mm-hmm.
You don't want to know shit about shit if you already took that shit. Like, you don't want, you know what I mean? Like, you gotta fight on. You gotta either just stay out the conversation or fight on the other side with your blinders on because you done put your life on the line. You know what I mean? Like, so you don't want no contrary information. You know what I mean? Like, that's not what you want. Like, so you gonna, like I said, people get to decide what veils they wish to keep down, and it's just important for me to know which side they on. Like, at this point, like, hey, you over there, cool. Like, that's the other thing. Can we be okay with people being where they at? Having their opinions, preparing how they want to prepare and all this stuff, like, be okay. You chose to do that. That's what you're doing. Why, like, do it. Like,
Yeah,
I don't,
people are afraid
be
to
okay.
disagree, and it's like the most common thing. It's the most human thing. That's a sign of not being a robot.
Yeah. And then, like, what was the movie where he talked about like fear? It was Will Smith and his son when they, I forget, but basically he was saying like, don't fear, like, you really shouldn't fear, like, fear. feel fear. It was more like you should be able to sense danger without a fear reaction. So I think in children, what we see is them sensing danger. You know what I mean? And like, and so you get in those situations and you don't escape, and you develop a fear, and then it happens some more, and then you develop a phobia. You know what I mean? Like, so we should all be able to sense danger, but instead of having any sense about it, it's only fear. So it's very easy to control. You know what I mean? Like, people who are scared are easy to control. Like, oh, it's over there. Ah, what? You know what I mean? Like, oh, it's got you to bend down. You know what I mean? I could have did if I would have planned something to hurt you, because I knew you was fit. You know what I mean? You're fearful, you're frightened. Like, I could have ran you into another trap. Then I get you in that trap, I scare you again, I got you here. Like, that's what they're doing. You know what I mean? Like, they're scaring people from one spot to another. And people aren't realizing that they program people, they study people, they know these things. Like, they literally know these things and how they spend money and stuff on it. Like, just, it's not ignorant and it's not by chance. Like, nothing is.
Yeah, I mean, it's to the point now where like they have stuff that can like detect your reaction. Like I could be scrolling through my phone and I see some cheeks clapping or something like that, and I might be like, it's gonna take that reaction. Just like they may show like some other thing with the Maxine Water or the Kobe-19 or something like that, and I might just be like, and it's gonna take that reaction too. Like it's taking a survey of everything that you're doing and all of your reactions, and it's basically just finding the perfect way to control and sell to you and sell you that fear.
It's that deep. Oh, this metaverse or whatever this shit that's about to start popping off. If we thought the internet was a strange place, this is like the living Sims. This is gonna be. I do not want to go with. I do not want to go with these. Like, y'all can have that one. Like, it's gonna be strange. Like, we already living in the metaverse, y'all. Like, we already have avatars. You don't need another one. Like, and people, it's gonna, oh Lord, the fear. How they gonna spread fear and not even physically be nowhere near anybody? Like, that's crazy. Sorry. That shit just popped up on my timeline the other day. Or like, is that what it's called on Instagram? Like,
Yeah, the little
my feed.
metaverse thing.
Yeah, like that shit's trippy. Like, if we thought they was gonna be able to control people and make people fear through just the news, imagine being inside the event. They're like, "This is what's going on over here," like, and like you get the physical response as if you were actually there, and how much control that's gonna give them over people's mentals and stuff. Like, I can't.
Yeah, so I wanna wrap this up here, but what would you say is the best thing that we could tell those that haven't completely gone over the edge, are kind of like, on the fence, and what can we do for the children? Those are all people that we could save. It's people on the fence and the children. Everybody else is doomed, or they picked their side already. So, Hope, you want to start?
Sure. For grown people who are on the fence, um, as I say with most things, you just got to pick what you want to do, because neutrality is also one of those things where people use it to kind of say, oh, I'm better because I don't go with either side. I'm not starting arguments either way. I mean, there's always going to be something people are going to argue about. So you're not really better. You're just not thinking and calling it better because it's less work. But you need to just do whatever the work is to go wherever it is you want to go and be honest with yourself. A lot of people don't want to be honest that they are fearful and they want to go the safer route. All right, do that. And if you really want to gain the courage to not go a certain route, then do that too. Like, that's how you conquer fear, is by using courage and facing those fears. So I mean, you just got to pick a side and stick with that, and stick with your decision, and don't be wishy-washy. That's what I'm looking for. Don't be wishy-washy, because that's also what neutrality is being wishy-washy. So, I mean, just be honest with yourself, sit within yourself, see what it is you really want to get, because your decision is going to be based on what it is you actually want to do in life. Like some people do just want the cush life. Some people do just want the straight path to money, or some people do just want to just chill for the rest of their life. You know, I watch reincarnation animes a good bit, and you have people that were given this gift from a goddess to redo their life basically, and they will go and squander it because they're like, oh, my last life was so hard, so I'm just gonna chill and be fat and eat food all day. All right, bro, that's how you decided to live your life. But stick with that if that's what you want to do. And then for children, if you are someone who is, you know, around children a lot, I mean, talk to them, sit and talk to them. Make sure, you know, when I'm talking to one of my younger students, I will check in with him. Like if he gets, if something bad happens in school or something, am I going to possibly, you know, reprimand him verbally for his part in the thing? Yeah, if it's severe enough, you know, if it's something like, because kids' favorite thing, oh, so and so made me do that. My first thing is, no, what were your actions? Because you can't let friends pull you down. Because the main point is that they need to understand that they don't need to follow the crowd, because that is such a struggle. I mean, it's always a struggle, but these younger generations, Z and Alpha, with the immediate access to technology and parents not helping by giving them technology right away. And if you are a parent, you need to show them how to use technology. Please, please stop giving these babies these cell phones unsupervised. Y'all do not maybe y'all do understand, you don't care. They will be able to work that thing quicker than you, sooner than you, better than you, and be on things that they don't need to be on, because that's how algorithms are set up. So if you do have children, just, I mean, monitor what they're doing and do not give these babies. I'm so tired of seeing 2-year-olds with iPads. So tired of it. But if you're just someone who works with and is around children, I mean, talk to them, open up for conversation. And I'm not going to say, when I say don't lie to them, what I mean is this. I don't like to tell children, I'm never going to tell your parents what, you know, you talk to me, because that's not necessarily true. If it's bad enough and I feel like it needs to be relayed, I will do that. But I say that to them. So I don't go and try to earn their fake trust. And then when I do go and reveal something to their parents, it isn't this, oh, you lied to me, because I didn't. From the beginning, I said, you can talk to me. This is an open conversation. If it is something severe enough, I am going to bring it up to your parent. Do you still want to talk to me about it? And give them the choice, so that they also understand early on that they can have choices based on what they think, because it's very important for them to keep their own mind, because everyone's minds and opinions are being attacked right now. And the fence straddlers and the children are, at this stage, they're going to be the most vulnerable, just because they have more malleable minds at this point. But yeah.
Jaya, what you got to say?
Okay, so for the people on the fence, question: would you still be on the fence if everybody you knew wasn't on the other side? Like, you might have to let some people close to you go. Like, that's where you at, you know what I mean? Like, and understand that, like, nothing is ever going back to the same. That's gone. Like, the 90s wasn't coming back, you know what I mean? The early 2000s ain't, like, nothing is going back. They called it the new normal for a reason. Nothing is ever going to go back. So with that information, are you still on the fence? Like, and what is actually keeping you on the fence? Like, talk about what's making you on the fence? Is because you do trust and you do feel like it's safety and all this stuff, or are you on the fence because they're making shit difficult? Or are you on the fence because somebody in your family is pressuring you? Are you on the fence? Like, why are you on the fence? And is it actually a reason, or is it an attachment, or is it something that has nothing to do with the real situation? You know what I mean? Like, so, because I think a lot of people who are on the fence are on the fence because of their attachments to people who are on the other side, and their attachment to systems and ideas that are on the other side. But truly at their core, they on the, you know what I mean? They're like, yeah, we can get the fuck out of here. But due to the attachments and other things, and they're straddling the fence, because anybody who is already gone. You know what I mean? Like, they jumped on it first thing they could. All right. So everybody on the fence was hesitant for a reason. The only thing that's keeping them on the fence is the other stuff. You know what I mean? Like the product itself is not selling them and it's not keeping them, but there's other things attached to it that are keeping you there. If you're still on the fence now, that's the only reason why you're on the fence. It's been long enough. So be honest with yourself and have that conversation with yourself. Or why is the product good enough for you to risk your life? Clearly it hasn't been thus far. Don't let the other shit make you make a decision out of fear because you don't know what to do without this other shit. Like, it's time to learn. For the children, if you want to teach them the children have critical thinking. Like, the little ones, you know what I mean? For the most part, if you sit down and you give them some simple information on their level, they will be able to sit there and at least come up with an idea that feels like it's something that came from them. You know what I mean? Like, even if they repeat it, it's something that they will usually take the time and be like, just because they haven't had enough stuff put in their head to identify with. So if you just give them some boop, 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 they'll be like, well, I don't like that. Or I would do that. Or, you know what I mean? Where a lot of adults have lost that, like they've lost that capability. Like when the whole ongoing thing that women can't decide like where they want to eat for dinner. Like, like, you know what I mean? Like some people have lost that capability, but like encourage the children to think outside of what's being fed to them. Like when my son watches cartoons, I make him think of the other side of the story. I always talk about the other side of the story where he's like, that's the bad guy. And I was like, well, let's see why he's bad. Let's look at it from his perspective. Well, would you be mad if somebody did that? And would you try to fight back? Or would, you know what I mean? Like, so now he's looking at both sides of the story. That is something that most people still can't do. So now we're thinking about different perspectives. And then the way children's mind work, they're going to take that and run. They're going to think about everybody's perspective. The aunt in the movie, you know what I mean? The mama thought he was doing this. At least my child, you give him one thing and he just be like, I am his mother though. So that probably has a little bit to do with it. But just encourage them to think different. Like, and encourage them to think. Don't try to influence their opinion. Encourage them to think. Like, usually adults are trying to instill systems and programs into children to tell them what to think rather than teach them and show them how to think. Like, and that's where you set your children up for success, to be able to encounter anything that comes along with them and think and look at it with a critical eye. And that is what's preparing children for life. If you were trying to prepare them to be able to make decisions, you're not preparing them to be able to have debates and like, I believe this and I believe that. And it's like, well, what if the leader of this thing turns bad and that all crumbles to hell? You want your child to stay there just because they're loyal to this idea or they're loyal to this identity? No, you don't. So encourage them to think outside the box and see things from other angles so that you don't create a sheep just to be led to the slaughter. The end.
I mean, as far as, you know, my take on those that are on the fence, like, yeah, you have to decide if you're gonna, you know, follow the herd and their immunity, or if you want to decide, you know, to kind of do your own thing. You know, I mean, this at this point, it is what it is. Like, they've chosen their path, and it's time for you to choose yours. And I do agree with Ajaya that a lot of times the influence is just, your family, your friends, your significant other, your side chick, your side babies, whatever. Like, all of these people that are close to you, decided to go in this one direction. And, all of your friends are quote unquote jumping off of that bridge. And now you're really thinking about, damn, do I really want to jump? Like, I mean, it's like, yeah, they're all doing that. They're all, taking that path. But what is it worth if I'm doing this path by myself? You need to decide among yourself if that's what you want, what you're willing to do. As far as the them, I mean, definitely teach them how to think. I really don't believe in like trying to instill fear and telling people, telling kids like this is what you should be afraid of. It's more about like these are the consequences for doing X, Y, and Z. I'm not gonna say this is right or this is wrong, but this is the risk that we're running by doing this. So whenever you decide to do X, Y, and Z, just keep that in mind that this could happen. and just being honest. Like I talk to kids like they damn near adults. It's just I'm not with the baby and the coddling. Like there's no time for any of that. Like life's about to get really really real, even though it seems to be getting faker and faker and faker. Shoot, it's so fake it's real. So it's you definitely have to be proactive going forward and not let fear control you. That's my 2 cents. Hope, if people want to find you, where gotta find you at?
Don't want to be found. Instagram is Hope You Smile. Twitter is Rainbow338, and my birth working website is manifestofhope.com. It's under construction right now, but it's there.
Instagram is probably the only social media I am somewhat active on. So it's Ajaya Divine everywhere. You can go see some old stuff. It's some quality stuff, on if you could just scroll my timeline on Twitter, Ajaya Divine. Or my website, ajayadivine.com, for all things birth education and spiritual counseling, shadow work, whatever you want to call it, inner child hunting, snatching. And yeah, that's it. Get your life together. Stand on what you believe in.
And did you just come out with a book?
Oh yes, those are on the website too. I have 2 books. My second book, Infinity Scrolls, definitely check that out. It's all about being a sovereign person of your energy and all that good shit, with some law shit in there. If you're trying to really not be with this system and shit, get the book.
And you can find me where you found me at. Make sure that you like, subscribe, slander, cancel. It is what it is. We are out.